Chapter 2 of Andiron Tales by John Bangs. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Story of Ebenezer. Ebenezer was a boy, very much like yourself, in several ways, resumed the right-hand iron. He wasn't one of the sleepyhead or dozy-pate families, but he was next thing to it. He was nephew of Senator Take-a-nap, and a grandson of old General Snore-aloud. But he'd never admit it. He used to get just as angry when we reminded him that he was quite as much of a Snore-aloud as a Carrot-top, as you were there when we called you Sleepyhead. And when my brother Lefty here said to him, "Hello, Weasel," he didn't like it a bit better than you did when we said you were a dormouse. He insisted that he was a boy, and for all we could do we couldn't get him to admit that he was a weasel. "He was the most persistent lad that I have ever seen. He'd always say that bad was bad, that blue could not be green. We couldn't get him to deny that white was always white, and though we'd try and try and try, he'd say that he was right," interrupted the left-hand iron. "And wasn't he?" asked Tom. "That isn't part of the story," snapped the right-hand iron, "and if you don't stop interrupting me, I'll never speak to you again." "I didn't mean to," said Tom apologetically. "That's just the worst part of it," snapped the andiron. "You are an interrupter by nature, and that is the most incurable kind. But, as I was telling you, Ebenezer was bound to be a boy, and no amount of talk on our part could convince him that he was a weasel. Well, Lefty and I were very young then, and up to the time of which I am speaking, we had always made our little trips in the fairy country, or in Giant Land, all by ourselves, and we had lots of fun together, I can warrant. This time, however, we decided to take Ebenezer with us to Giant Land, which was a place he had often heard us tell about, and concerning which he was very curious. We told him that it would never do for him to visit Giant Land, because the giants were always very hungry, and liked nothing better to eat than a boy like himself. It would be dangerous for him to go, we said, unless he would promise to obey us in everything we told him to do, and to admit that he was whatever we chose to call him. "You see, my dear Tom," said the left-hand iron in explanation, "the giants had such confidence in us that they accepted as true anything we said, so that if we should happen to meet a hungry ogre, and he should want to eat Ebenezer because he was a boy, all that would be necessary for us to do to save Ebenezer was to say, 'Hold on, he is not a boy, he is a weasel.' Then Ebenezer would be all right, because giants do not eat weasels." "I see," said Tom, nodding his head. "Ebenezer promised that he would obey us and wouldn't deny he was a weasel if we told the giants he was one, and we took him off with us," resumed the right-hand iron. "We went straight to Giant Land, and had a perfectly lovely time until about an hour before it was time to return, when we encountered a huge giant named Sky-High. And my, how hungry he was! He was hungrier than Lefty's friend, who went into a restaurant and ordered 37 pounds of cake, 64 lamb chops, 18 portions of beefsteak, 40 ginger pops, 17 vanilla puffs, 20 fresh-caught dabs, 38 rich raisin duffs, 90 soft-shell crabs. Let those go for course the first. Let the second be shrimps and oysters till I burst. 13 quarts of tea, then a dozen sugared hams, 1 small cabbage head, 90 dozen pinky clams, 60 loaves of bread, 7 quarts of French canned peas, and a pound or two of your gorgonzola cheese. For my lunch will do." Then the waiter standing by, in the usual way, asked him, "Won't you also try our hot mites today?" "I don't want to interrupt," said Tom, "but it seems to me that man must have been awful rich." "No, he wasn't," returned Lefty. "He was going to eat the dinner, you know, and then die without paying for it. He wasn't a very good man." "No," remarked the storyteller, "but he was a very hungry man, in which respect he was just like the giant I am trying to tell you about. And my, how the giant roared with glee when he caught sight of Ebenezer. 'Good!' he cried. 'That's just what I wanted for my lunch, a nice fat boy!' Then he reached down, said the right-hand iron, and grabbed Ebenezer by the arm, and was about to eat him just as he would a piece of asparagus, when Lefty here cried out, "Avast there, Sky-High! That isn't a nice fat boy. That is only a miserable weasel." "Pah!" said Sky-High, with a face such as you put on when you take a horrid-tasting medicine. "Pah! I can't eat weasels." And with that he put Ebenezer down on the road again, and was about to walk along about his business, when what did that foolish little Ebenezer do but up and deny that he was a weasel. "I'm not a weasel," he yelled, "and I am a boy, and a fine boy at that." Sky-High stopped short, whirled about, and rushed back to where Ebenezer was standing. "What's that you say?" he said eagerly. "I say I am not a weasel, but a fine fat boy," said the vainglorious Ebenezer stoutly. "Then my friends the Andirons have deceived me, have they?" roared the giant. "Yes," replied Ebenezer, "but I can't stand being called a weasel." With that, said the right-hand iron, Sky-High clapped Ebenezer into his market basket, and then turned on Lefty and me. Lefty managed to get away, but I was caught. "What did he do to you?" asked Tom, trembling with excitement. "He tried to bite my head off," said Righty with a laugh. "See those 2 dents on either side of my neck?" Tom looked, and sure enough there were the dents, not very deep, but quite large enough to be seen. "His teeth broke when he got that far," said Righty. "I'm pretty hard. But you see it needn't have happened at all if Ebenezer had only kept quiet about his not being a weasel." "Was he eaten by Sky-High?" asked Tom. "I don't know," replied Righty. "Lefty and I didn't wait to find out, and we have never been back there since. I don't believe he did eat him, for 2 reasons. One is that after trying to bite my head off, Sky-High hadn't teeth enough left to eat anything with. And the other reason is that I saw Ebenezer 2 years afterwards on his way to school one beautiful spring morning. I noticed him particularly because, although it was a lovely clear morning, he had his umbrella up and positively declined to put it down and carry it closed, because, he said, an umbrella couldn't possibly be a cane, and he wasn't going to try to make anybody suppose it was a cane. I don't see anything in that story to make me unhappy, even if I were a chum of Ebenezer's," said Tom as the andiron finished. "You don't? Don't you think it was sad that the giant couldn't eat a boy who had behaved in that way?" asked Righty, with a scornful glance at Tom. "It was very sad, Tom," said the left-hand iron. "So don't deny it, especially if you want to go off on our trip to the stars." "Are you really going to the stars?" gasped Tom, breathless at the very idea and forgetting all about Ebenezer. "Perhaps," returned the andiron. "And may I go with you?" whispered Tom. "You may if you will do whatever we tell you, and admit that you are a dormouse," said Righty. "All right, I'll obey," said Tom. "And what did you say your name was?" asked Lefty. "Sleepyhead Dozy Pate Dormouse," said Tom with a laugh. "You'll do," returned the right-hand iron, stepping lightly out of the fireplace. "Now sit astride of my back and take hold of Lefty's right claw." Tom did as he was told, and in an instant he was flying up through space toward the stars. End of chapter 2.